Hello, welcome everyone to the debut episode of The Spotlight. I am Jeremy Lambert, and here with me, the great Stephen Jensen. Jensen, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to do this show. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about, and I'm happy for this debut episode. And I'm happy that we've got people in the chat, and I hope y'all enjoy this as well. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. So I'm doing great today, man. How about you?
I am well. I see Chris Frazier's in the chat. He says he's at the show last night, AEW Dynamite. I was there as well, and we will talk about that here shortly. Before that, guys, you can leave a super chat here on YouTube. Leave a super chat. Get your question, comment, statement read on air. You can leave a humper chat at humperchat.com. It might be humperchats.com, but you can leave a humper chat as well. So the premiere episode here on the Spotlight, for those who may not know, do know, want more information, as I think people do know, is we used to do the Distraction every Thursdays at 3 o'clock. That has unfortunately ended, and I needed something new to do with my Thursdays. And so what I decided to do was a show called The Spotlight, where I wanted to touch on topics ranging from WWE all the way to the indie, to the independents, because I don't think we cover enough of that stuff here on the main Fightful channel. So I wanted to touch on kind of like Impact, New Japan, things like that, because a lot of the shows that are on this channel, it is WWE recaps, AEW recaps, and things like that. And I wanted to spotlight other promotions and try to get them more pub, and also for myself selfishly learn about more of those promotions and like really focus in and keep up with them. I also wanted to spotlight creators, different people in wrestling media, different people, wrestlers, as we'll announce later on, but different people who maybe you haven't heard of, maybe you have heard of, but don't know enough about, and learn more about them and what they do in the wrestling content creation space. And Stephen Jensen was my first choice to do this show because you watch literally everything. You have the Weekender on Fightful Select, where you talk about all the independents and all the companies that are not covered as much on the main channel. And so I reached out to you. We set it all up, and here we are. But that is the rundown of what this show is all about. We will talk about WWE. We will talk about AEW. We'll talk about other, and other is going to be things like Impact, New Japan, MLW, NWA, and we'll talk about the independents as well. And we will take one item from each of those categories, one item each, and we will focus in on that. So it's not going to be, hey, let's recap this match, let's recap this segment, things like that. We're just going to focus in on one thing from each of those categories and have a discussion about that. And Jensen, I'm very excited to start this venture with you. And again, you're my first choice on this because you watch everything, and you're going to make me smarter when it comes to a lot of this stuff.
Well, and you're going to keep me in the loop on the WWE, because that's like the one thing that I don't really cover on the Weekender. And I watch AEW religiously, so I'm up on the loop on all that. But yeah, I'm happy that we get to kind of spotlight some more of the people in the companies that I talk about on the Weekender, because there's so much damn good wrestling out there right now. Like, it's a real a la carte situation. Like, whatever you like in wrestling, it's available, and it's so accessible between Fight TV and IWTV and all these other streaming services and stuff. Like, and so that's I'm just really excited about that. Like, and I'm happy to talk to you about this stuff, because I mean, me and you are like the same age. We've been watching wrestling like the same amount of time. Like, we have a lot of probably similar. Well, I know for sure because we know each other for a while. We have a similar taste in humor and stuff like that. So like, this is going to be a whole lot of fun. And me and Jeremy, we were talking about it yesterday or the other day. We were talking about how we haven't done a whole lot of shows with just the two of us. It's always been like a third or a fourth or like a group type thing. And we were like, this is going to be fun, because like we haven't really done a whole lot of just stuff with just me and you. So like this is going to be a really, really fun show, I think, for everybody that's watching.
I'm excited for it. I think it links in well with the new Fightful Overbooked channel. Everybody can go to youtube.com/Fightful Overbooked. I think it links in well with the Weekender that you do on Fightful Select. So I'm real excited for the new venture here. Guys, please, it is not the Distraction. That is That is a moment in time that maybe we will get back together like Outcast, but it's not that. I hope everybody tries not to make too many comparisons and things like that. And much love to Joseph and those guys doing their thing over there. JJ sends us a super chat. He says, hello to my favorite big star and king of the indies watcher, Stephen Jensen. Hope you're doing well. Tonight's Impact show looks wild, and I love it. See, JJ, you want more Impact talk, and we're now going to give you more Impact talk. So you should keep giving us all of your money, JJ. And we appreciate you, JJ, for everything that you do.
Yeah. Thank you, JJ. And that's a big part of this too. Impact Wrestling, they get buzz. You know, me and Denise do the post shows for the big four pay-per-views, and they seem to get buzz about 4 times a year. But if you're a Impact fan, I'm sure you want to hear more people discussing the show because they have a consistently good show. It's just a show that a lot of people just kind of like tune in and out of in waves. So yeah, this is going to be great for people who like Impact Wrestling. And I also want to shout out real quick, like nothing but love for Joseph. Like, obviously I'm a very good friend of his, and I don't want anybody watching this to think that like, this is a different show and everything, but I don't want people thinking I'm like replacing him. That's not my goal. That's not anything like that. Like, I just want people to know, like, I am Team Joseph Holbert. Like, I'm his friend. I hope nothing but the best for him, and I want to see him back. You know what I mean? Like, I love that dude. So I just want to put that out there too. This is nothing like me taking a spot or nothing malicious or anything like that. So just want y'all to know I come from a good place joining Jeremy in the show.
Yes, there was never, we had to do a different show. The distraction is Joseph and I. That is always what it'll be. I had to do something that was a little bit different from that to try and differentiate a lot of that stuff. But Joseph is the best and will forever be my partner in life and in podcasting in many ways. All right, Jensen, let's get into this. We're going to start with WWE, and my WWE spotlight this week is Ronda Rousey. The news that WWE is pushing for her to return. It seems like she could be back at the Rumble. She made her debut at the Rumble a few years ago that led to her Raw Women's title run. She has not been seen since WrestleMania 35 when she lost the triple threat match. I don't know if Ronda Rousey is going to be back. Hasn't been super double confirmed or anything like that. A lot of people in the know seem to think like it's more likely than not. Where are you at on Ronda Rousey returning to WWE?
I think that she should. I mean, if she wants to, you know, like I think that she's been out of the spotlight for a while. The spotlight, go figure. But I because I've been saying this too ever since Juliana Pena recently won the bantamweight championship from Amanda Nunes in the UFC. I was thinking like maybe Ronda will get back in MMA because like she might match up better against Pena than she did against Nunes and stuff like. And I feel like we just haven't seen or heard from her really in so long that I felt like a return in either MMA and or pro wrestling was probably going to happen at some point in the near future, unless she likes being retired and she just doesn't want to be a part of it anymore, which is totally fine as well. But my thing is this. If she does return to the WWE and she does enter the Royal Rumble, she will win that match. Like, it is a 100% foregone double stamp conclusion. Like, I am firm in the idea that if Ronda Rousey is there, she will win that Royal Rumble match, and she'll probably wrestle Becky one-on-one at WrestleMania is what I'm thinking.
See, that's where I'm with you that if she enters that thing, she ain't losing it. But everybody seems to go to her and Becky, and that makes the most sense. And we know in WWE, they don't always make the most sense. When I did the show with Sean yesterday, he threw out the possibility of Ronda and Charlotte. And then I was like, oh, man, they are going to do that, aren't they? They're going to do Ronda and Charlotte at WrestleMania, and then they can still do Becky and Bianca. And my kind of pitch idea was they do those two matches. Ronda wins. Bianca actually beat Becky because she needs to get that win back. That SummerSlam thing was god-awful. And they need to rehab Bianca and get her that moment at WrestleMania. So Bianca beats Becky, and then next night on Raw, whenever you want to do it, Ronda comes out, does her promo and everything, and then the man Becky Lynch returns to confront Ronda, and we do away with the big time Becks, and we bring back the man because let's be honest, they ain't cheering Ronda Rousey over Becky Lynch if they do a program. They're just not. Becky can try to do her heel stuff. She's having a hard time getting people to boo her against Liv Morgan and Bianca Belair, and people actually like Liv Morgan and Bianca Belair. They ain't booing her against Ronda Rousey, who wrestling fans don't totally like, especially with her comments that she's made since leaving.
Yeah, Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because I did of course think of the idea of Charlotte and Ronda as well, which I love that too. I mean, I love Charlotte. I know she's divisive and people either love her or hate her. And
the one Charlotte fan. Hashtag bow down, everybody.
Yeah, I love her. You know, I think she's great. But see, this is where part of me too thinks, because I don't know if they're going with Bianca to be the main event or in the title match at WrestleMania again. I just don't know if that's where they're heading or not. But what I do know is Lita's in that match too, the Royal Rumble, and I feel like if they have access to her through WrestleMania, she'll get a big spot in a women's title match too, I think. So I was kind of defaulting to thinking Ronda wins the Royal Rumble, she wrestles Becky one-on-one, and there's some sort of elimination or confrontation between Lita and Charlotte, and maybe that's the other women's title match is Lita and Charlotte one-on-one, because they did Charlotte and Trish, and now they got a chance of doing Charlotte and Lita, which would also continue, and it's also on brand for Charlotte being the queen and kind of beating all of the former goats of women's wrestling and keep winning titles and stuff. Because at a certain point too, winning titles, that's cool and all. And I get that's her gimmick is to always be the champion or always be in the title match and that kind of stuff. But it also gets really repetitive. And I think that's why a lot of fans have kind of soured on her, because it's she's just always in the title mix. She always wins the title and it feels like it's holding other people down. But I think it'd be really exciting and something interesting and different if it's well, it's her versus Lita. We've never seen that before. And that could be a really damn good match for the title. So,
yeah, Charlotte and Lita, they had the segment on SmackDown. Charlotte and Mickie James just talked about wanting to work with Charlotte. You're right that Charlotte can only win the title a million times before it gets old. I think everybody knows that it's gotten old. So going after legends makes some sense. Man, when Sean mentioned that Rousey and Charlotte match, and that's the thing that they might want to do, it's such a WWE thing. They'll just do it. They got Becky and Ronda right there, just waiting for them. Becky's already kind of promoting it. It's instead of the match you want, the match you've never seen, let's do Charlotte and Ronda, because they had the Survivor Series match, and that was really good. And then, of course, they inserted Charlotte into WrestleMania. That's just, it's such a WWE thing just to do that match.
Well,
as long as Bianca gets her moment against Becky, as long as they do that, because if Ronda wins and they do the Becky match and Ronda beats Becky at Mania and Bianca she has that SummerSlam loss and it's just, all right, you're feuding with whoever now, Natalya now, that ain't going to look good. That is not going to look good.
I agree 100%. I just don't put it past the WWE that's what they'll do. You know what I mean? Yeah, especially because I think plans change when you have people like Ronda Rousey available and people like Lita available. That's nothing against Bianca Belair, obviously. I think she should, I'm team, push Bianca and push the new talent. But I'm just saying from WWE's perspective, they're the same company that will constantly go back to Brock Lesnar any chance that they get. And I think they do the same with Ronda. And unfortunately, I mean, this is the sad truth of it. The WWE hasn't created any stars outside of Roman Reigns, and that's still marginal in comparison to John Cena and even Brock Lesnar, and of course The Rock and Austin and Hogan and all them. So they're in this weird position where even though Ronda Rousey's been gone for years, she's still more quote unquote famous than everyone else the WWE has currently on their regular roster. So that's just kind of where and another thing is too, if you can get Ronda's commitment, even for WrestleMania, SummerSlam, some of the bigger shows, you can still have Ronda versus Becky, Ronda versus Charlotte, right? You can still do all the Ronda dream matches at the big pay-per-views if she's going to be around for a minute. But yeah, I just totally see the WWE doing something like that where Bianca just gets totally boxed out, and the fan base isn't going to be happy about it. But when does that stop the WWE from doing stuff the fans was unpopular with the fans? You know what I mean? They do it all the time. So
we will see what happens if Ronda Rousey is going to be there, and if she is, both Jensen and I believe that she's winning this thing. She's gonna come out. She's gonna win. She's gonna point to the fucking sign. She's gonna sue. She's gonna sue us again for the shirt, and That'll be that. Do you know the story, Jensen?
I remember the shirt, and I didn't. Did she actually do anything about that for real?
I know there was I'm pretty sure there was like a cease and desist with that shirt because her team wasn't too happy with that thing. So yeah, she's gonna sue us again, and that'll be that. Maybe Charlotte will win the Rumble, and then we get Ronda coming out and pointing to the sign, and that's how they just set up Charlotte and Ronda, and they just completely ignore Becky. And then Becky somebody mentioned in the chat that Bianca goes on Elimination Chamber run like Shayna does, and maybe that's how they get to Becky and Bianca. If we see Ronda, though, she's got to do the sign point. She just has to.
Well, and what you just described is exactly what they did when Asuka won the Women's Royal Rumble match, and Charlotte came out, Ronda came out, and like, but once again, WWE, like, they could totally just do the same thing again and be like, yeah, y'all don't remember that happening a couple years ago, like, this is new,
We do remember how they'll think it's just funny. They're like, ha ha ha, look what we've done. We've just done the same thing. It's a callback, everybody. Everyone remembered this, and it got a lot of buzz and everything. That's what they love doing that stuff. They love making it seem like they know what they're doing by playing off of the history, but they had no real intention of actually doing that. And that's just where they go with things. So I imagine that's how they're going to do it.
Let me put it this way. If people have like this real, once again, I'm not saying this will or won't happen. I'm just saying, like, Bianca being a good example. If people are like really married to the idea of like Bianca, like, it's all gonna play out. Like, Bianca got smoked by Becky, but it's okay because like she'll get it back and she'll get her momentum back. Y'all remember Kofi Mania and how fast that just went? You know what I mean? Like, Big E, like, I feel like he's going to get boxed out of probably anything big. I mean, he'll do something at WrestleMania, but I don't think it'll involve any of the world titles. Like, you know what I mean? That was like, he was their champion a few weeks ago. Yeah. So they're very quick to just be like, well, no, see ya. Like, we know everyone's super behind this wrestler and everyone wants to see them succeed, but Ronda's more famous. Sorry. Brock's more famous. Sorry. It's just kind of what the business they're in right now, I feel like. So,
Jensen, and mentioning Big E, I know that ties into your spotlight for WWE. What do you have when it comes to WWE?
My spotlight for WWE, because the Royal Rumble is this weekend, and as down as I can get on the WWE, I do get very, very excited for the Royal Rumble. Every year, it's a lot of fun. I do the Royal Rumble squares and stuff, where you get a number like the Super Bowl, and you try to have a good time winning money. I'm on WrestleRumble.com, doing the games over there. I'll have a couple of my friends over who don't even really watch wrestling that often. Like, they get excited because it's the Royal Rumble, and we used to watch it when we were kids and teenagers and stuff, and like. So I'm very excited for the Royal Rumble. And when I was thinking about it, I was like, there's really no real clear winner for the men's Royal Rumble match. And I think a lot of that has to do with Brock having a title right now and Roman having a title right now, and everyone expecting Brock versus Roman, title versus title at Mania. But a lot could happen between now and then. And so my spotlight is the men's Royal Rumble match. Like, I'll get to my prediction here in a second, but I want to hear your thoughts. Like, who do you think wins the men's Royal Rumble match, and which title do they challenge for? Like, what makes the most sense to you right now?
I think Brock wins the men's Royal Rumble match. I think he loses to Lashley. Maybe you get Uso interference. I don't know how they do it. They'll do it in a way where Brock is obviously heavily, heavily, heavily protected, but they can do it. And Lashley's been booked like a badass. He is a badass. So it won't hurt Brock too much, especially if he does win the Rumble and goes on to dethrone Roman, which is kind of where I see this all headed. I think Brock ends up getting in this match after losing to Lashley, and he ends up winning it, because I'm with you. There ain't a real clear-cut winner, because it seems like they're headed towards Brock and Roman. And if you do that, you got to take the title off of one of them, or one of them has to win this thing. Or the Rumble winner challenges for the tag team title. Maybe Sheamus wins and he's like, I need that Intercontinental title. I'm challenging for the Intercontinental title. Is that he joked about that in interviews. But maybe that's what happens. But I think Brock ends up winning the Rumble.
That's funny, because that's actually my prediction also. And I don't know if he necessarily loses to Lashley or not. I think it's possible that he beats Lashley and still wins the Royal Rumble.
My God.
So here's another thing I had in mind was, similar to Vengeance back when Jericho won the undisputed title for the first time. They had that mini tournament with him, Angle, Austin, and The Rock. And maybe because they have 2 nights of WrestleMania, they can do something like that where like Roman has to defend on night 1 against someone and Brock has to defend on night 1 against someone. And then the 2 winners wrestle for title versus title at night 2, maybe something like that. And that opens it up more to like more people getting some opportunity for WrestleMania. Like in that scenario, I don't know exactly how you work all of this, but I'm just trying to think like how out of the box they might go with this, because you have the 2 nights of WrestleMania and they're definitely going to want a world title match on both nights. But then again, they could just do, like you said, now I've had that in mind as well. Like them just doing, like if anyone's going to beat Brock, Lashley is definitely the one who makes the most sense for a lot of reasons. Like, and I think in Brock's own mind, because there's definitely a bit of an ego to Brock, right? Like as it should be. Like he's only gonna let certain people do certain things to him in that ring to kind of keep his own kind of credibility and what he's built for himself through the company. So like Lashley, obviously legitimate badass Bellator fighter, very good Bellator fighter, by the way. People don't realize how good he was in MMA. He wasn't Brock Lesnar's level, but like he was way better than like Jack Swagger, for instance, like way better. But like, so you know, it's just I could see a scenario, but even though like it's gonna take like Roman and the Usos and maybe even like Solo Sikoa or something, like the whole bloodline is gonna have to get involved. By the way, I started watching Solo Sikoa on like 205 Live and stuff, and I was like, wait, his Uso, like this is clearly an Uso, right? And like I was like, this he looks like the third twin, and they don't call him Uso, which really confused me. But I mean, if the bloodline gets involved and enough things happen, I think that Brock will be okay losing like 1, 2, 3 to Lashley, or even getting put in a hurt lock and just passing out from it or something like that. And so I think the most likely scenario is what you laid out. I think Lashley gets the title off Brock. Brock enters the Royal Rumble and wins it. So we get Brock and Roman for the SmackDown title at Mania. And then you have Lashley as the defending champion against, I guess, whoever wins Elimination Chamber heading into and I guess maybe that's Big E. Like maybe he gets himself back into that spot through, because I don't know who else, because the only other thing I wanted to bring up is like, this is a little out of left field, but I could see them doing it. At some point, they're going to put one of these world titles on Omos. I'm not saying it's a good thing. The guy is very green, but I promise you, he will be the WWE or one of the world champions within the next 6 months. He'll be one of the world champions. So
6 months. You're going seriously, 6 months?
Dude. They're gonna pull. Because what are they gonna do with the guy? He's already done the thing with AJ, and now he's just gonna beat everybody up. And he's so big that like Vince is just sitting there waiting for his. They put the title on Great Khali. Like they're gonna put it on Omos 1,000,000,000%. Like as limited as Omos is, he moves around better than Great Khali ever did, and they put the title on him. So like I have no doubt in my mind Omos is gonna be the champion. So like, do you just have him win the Royal Rumble? Like probably not, but I'm just saying like that's a name to maybe look out for based on. I saw him in like another one of those Rumbles or Battle Royals or something recently, and he eliminated like everyone in the match for the most part.
The Pizza Hut Battle Royal.
That's right. So I'm just throwing it out there. Like y'all be ready. All you WWE fans out there that are letting everything play out. I promise you Omos will be the champion. Sometime. Let me revise that. Sometime in 2022, he will be the world champion.
Okay. A year is a little bit. 6 months seems insane to me. Like I'm with you. They have high hopes for this guy and they're going to push him to the moon, but putting the belt on him in 6 months, just, I don't know. You're going to be right about him though. They clearly love this guy and they're going to put the belt on him probably sooner rather than later. And I could definitely see by the end of the year, 6 months seems a little bit soon, but I mean, they've done stranger things. My pitch, you mentioned Big E and like, yeah, he makes sense to win the Elimination Chamber, face Lashley at Mania. My pitch with Big E has always been him win the Rumble and him being like, I want both of these titles. Roman, you beat me at Survivor Series. I want to end your run. Brock, you pinned me at day one. You ended my run. I want to end this like winner take all triple threat match, WrestleMania. They'll never do it. They're clearly not behind Big E like a lot of us are. So they'll never do it. But that is my pitch. I would make Big E and like really actually make him, not just give him a feel-good moment where he had to cash in and beat an injured Lashley, and then his title reign sucked and was an afterthought. I would actually really make this guy and do that with the Rumble. They won't do it. Brock is my top pick to win this thing. If it's not Brock, if they don't go with that scenario, I've seen people say Kevin Owens, where Seth Rollins ends up beating Roman, and then you do Owens and Rollins potentially at WrestleMania. If it's not them, it's a tough scenario because we all think it's going Brock and Roman. And so if one is the champion, or it seems like, or if they're both champions, it's title versus title. If one is the champion, then it seems like the other has to win the Rumble. So I don't know where they're going with the Rumble, which makes it intriguing, honestly. Like, I'm very intrigued by it. I just don't know where it's going.
Yeah, and I like the unpredictability about it. I don't like going into the Royal Rumble match and having like a clear cut, this person's probably going to win type feeling about it. When speaking of Big E, the saddest thing about his whole scenario is he did everything he could outside of the company. Like, he was showing up to the major boxing matches and doing the ring intros. He was showing up to College Game Day. He's a great representative for your company. Like, he looks great in a suit. Like, he looks like a pro wrestler. He's like this big jacked up dude. Like, you see him and you're like, you just know he's an athlete, and it's like, I feel like they could have just done so much more with him, and they've waited so long to pull the trigger. But after they did, I think he did everything in his power to be a star that was bigger than just the WWE. Like, he was trying to pull in eyes from outside of the company, which is what they want, bringing in more and more fans from boxing and other places. And he did all those things. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with this whole thing with WrestleMania and the Elimination Chamber and going into all this. But like we both said, I think Brock Lesnar probably makes the most sense. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be fun. I am going to have a good time watching the show.
Omos is going to win now. You've just sold. Omos is just going to eliminate. He's going to eliminate all 29 people. They always talk about like, oh, I got to toss 29 people over the top rope. It's like, no, you got to toss like maybe one or two. You got to toss at least one if you want to win it. But like, nobody tosses. He's going to toss all 29, and that's how they're going to make this guy. He's going to enter number one, toss everybody out immediately, and it's going to be whatever the intervals are. That's how they're going to make Omos. This is my official prediction for this show.
Well,
guys,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was about to wrap up. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say the thing about Omos, and the reason I'm so confident about him too, like that they're going to go all the way with him this year, is because he really doesn't have to do a whole lot. Like, as long as he can just, like, he's not going to take any bumps, and he just has to just look big and just do a few things really well. And everyone else is going to do all the other work. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Guys, Royal Rumble is on Saturday. We'll have coverage on Fightful after the show. Myself and Jared Bailey will be doing the post-show recap here on youtube.com/Fightful. Everybody can check that out. We got a super chat from our buddy Comrade who says, super excited for this new show. Thanks to all at Fightful. Thank you, man. We appreciate the support. We appreciate the love and support. Let's move on to AEW. And I will throw to you on your spotlight because it could have Royal Rumble implications here with what you have.
Yes, so my AEW spotlight today it's kind of a double spotlight, but it's all about the same person. So, we'll do it like this. The first thing I wanted to shout out, it's about Cody Rhodes. And the thing that I wanted to shout out first is I loved that ladder match with him and Sammy. I thought that was an incredible ladder match last night for the TNT Championship. And that was the coolest cutter I've seen in my life, when Sammy jumped off the ladder to the other ladder and did that. And Cody's crossroads I thought was sweet. And that was just an awesome match. Great storytelling. But to really highlight the actual spotlight topic, after the match, he did a video that was online and a lot of people were talking about, and he actually mentioned Sean Ross Sapp.
He boosted this man's ego, who's in the chat now singing the lyrics to Nelly. Yes, he had to like outright mention Sean Ross. He didn't use Sapp, just Sean Ross. But Jesus, Cody, can we not boost this man's ego any more than it's already way up here. It's already as tall as he is. Can we not do that?
So the topic here is that Cody confirmed Sean's report that he is working on a handshake deal with AEW and he is not under contract. And I think a big reason why they're doing this, I don't actually think that he's going to go to the Royal Rumble. Like, I think it'd be awesome. And that'd be a real hook to get me back to watching the WWE all the time. Like, if Cody was there, I would watch religiously again. Because I'm such a Cody fan. But the thing is like, I think that a lot of this was done to put that seed of doubt in fans' minds. Like he lost the TNT title. He has no contract. The Royal Rumble is this weekend. And it just gets a lot of people talking and speculating about him leaving AEW. And my gut instinct is that he's not leaving AEW. He might maybe do some other stuff like outside of AEW, but I don't think he's going to leave AEW completely. This is the feeling I have about it. But if he did want to go back to the WWE, he's not going to go in and get blindsided. Like, I think a lot of people think, well, if Cody goes back to the WWE, they're just going to make him Stardust. He's just going to take the bag, and he's not going to, he'll just do whatever they want him to, and they're not going to push him, and they'll actually punish him because he went and he started AEW and all this stuff. It's like, Cody's too smart for that. He's not going to go in there and let them blindside him. Like, I don't think he's hurting for money. Like, I mean, clearly AEW is doing very well, and he's a very big part of that. Could WWE offer him a lot of money? Obviously they could, and maybe he'll take it. But I think he'd take it under some contingencies. Like, I don't think he'd go in there and just, because that's the reason he left in the first place. They were jobbing him out, and he's like, I know I'm better than this. I want to go prove it elsewhere. And now, but also on the flip side, when he left the WWE, the big reason he did was because he wanted to raise his value and prove to the WWE that he was a main event level guy. And he's done that now. He's literally created their competition and is one of the top stars there. And if the WWE wanted him back, like, he has a ton of leverage to come back now and be a main event level guy. Like, maybe his life goal is to be the WWE World Champion. And like, if they promise him that, maybe he'll come back. So I think that's kind of the topic, is Cody being a free agent, him legitimately not working with a contract, and all the speculation about, like, what does he do next? Does he leave AEW? Does he show up at the Royal Rumble? What do you think?
I don't think he shows up at the Royal Rumble. I think this whole thing is part of this angle that they are doing. I truly believe that he doesn't have a contract and everything right now, right. But I think he's going to continue to appear on television. I don't think he's going anywhere at all. I think it is part of this angle. It's a little strange to me because you're basically speculating if he's going to show up on your competition show, which makes you want to tune in more to the competition. Which I know, like, there's a lot of crossover between WWE and AEW, but a lot of the hardcore AEW fans, they don't always watch a lot of WWE, and now they might actually be intrigued to watch at least the Rumble, being like, hey, like, is Cody going to show up? I do think Cody will kind of show up elsewhere. Like, he could walk right into the NWA. Aldis has talked about wanting that match a million times. He could walk right into Impact. I know there's a little history there, but I think he might show up elsewhere and do some indie stuff. I don't think he's showing up to WWE. I will say this: now might be the time for him to show up in WWE, because we know he likes to, like, dig and needle at one Triple H, and that man's getting pushed aside in a lot of aspects right now. And if Cody comes in and Cody is the one that lifts that promotion and he can have that over Triple H, maybe that's the motivation for Cody. Honestly, he's like, you know what? You failed with NXT. We kicked the shit out of you. We kicked you off of Wednesday nights. You completely failed with this promotion. I'm going to come in and I'm just going to take your spot. I'm going to be the son that Vince never truly had, even though he's got Shane. I'm going to be that person for him. Maybe this is Cody. Maybe that's his whole motivation to do this whole thing. And he does go to WWE, and he is going to be Vince's favorite son, Cody Rhodes.
That's funny you say that too, because like I remember years ago when Cody left the WWE, a big talking point that he had was in like interviews and stuff. He talked about how in NXT, guys like Kevin Owens and others in NXT were getting called Dusty's kids. All these people that Dusty was bringing up, all the female talent that was going through NXT, they were all Dusty's kids. The 4 Horsewomen were Dusty's kids, all this stuff. And Cody's like, you have Dusty's actual kid and you're dressing me up like a space clown. Yeah. Like, you know, like, but now he could come back and be like, I'm Vince's kid. I'm more Vince's kid than Vince's kids are. You know what I mean? Like, how wild of a story would that be? Jeez. He comes back and just smokes Austin Theory. He's like, get out of here, bro. Like, me and Vince have business to take care of.
Oh man, a Cody and Vince segments and Cody and Vince relationship. That'd be tremendous television. I would love that shit. Cody's always been like, he's always felt like more of a WWE guy than an AEW person. I think it kind of shows in the stuff that he does on television. Because he's very much old school in his thinking compared to the other EVPs that are, they like to do their bits and peel back the curtain a little bit more and things like that. Cody is much more protective of that stuff in certain ways. But he always felt like the theatrical, over the top kind of wrestler that WWE loves. Whereas, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, they like to just go in there and they like to do their moves and they do excellent. They're some of the best wrestlers in the world. Cody has always been more of a, hey, let's do a big sports entertainment style presentation. And that's been the knock on Cody with AEW fans, right? It's like, all right, Cody, we get it. You like your big entrance and your big production and all your pyro and all this stuff. Like, we just want to see cool matches and things like that. We don't need all that stuff, Cody. So him going back to WWE and prove it and like trying to take out AEW with his way, dude, that's a good fucking story. I don't think it's gonna happen, but man, that's really good.
Yeah, no, I agree. It'd be very intriguing, and that's it's interesting when people, because I know that there's a lot of thoughts out there about Cody right now. I know people are all over the place on loving him and hating him and wanting to see him, not wanting to see him, and all this stuff. But like you just said, he is a little bit more of an old school mindset. And I've talked about that before too, where like, I think people need to appreciate more of what he is doing for AEW behind the scenes up to this point, because he's really the bridge between old school wrestling, but he's also new school in a lot of ways. Like he wrestles a little more kind of like WWE does and kind of the more theatrical stuff, but like he has like modern matches. Like he can go out there and have like a classic against other top wrestlers. But it's just, I don't know. It's like, I on one hand, I think obviously Cody knows what he's doing. He's been a wrestling fan his entire life. He's the son of Dusty. He's the brother of Dustin. Like he knows what he's doing. Like I think a lot of the fans that are upset with him, like, don't realize like that's the exact reaction he's trying to get out of you. Like you are getting worked right now by everything he's doing. But on the flip side, imagine, I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm just saying for fans out there that like think, oh, get rid of Cody. He shouldn't be an EVP. He shouldn't be on TV. He shouldn't be this and that. And it's like, do you want AEW to not have him? And like, maybe you're watching people throwing fake grenades at each other and sticking thumbs in each other's buttholes in slow motion. Cause that's what happens on a lot of these shows. Like I listen, I love PWG, but like, I don't know how much of that would fly on mainstream TV. I don't know how much like the overall audience is going to want to see a lot of that stuff. Like, I don't know how many people want to see Kenny Omega wrestle a blow up doll on like national television. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think that Cody might be filtering some of these things out too backstage and being like, yeah, that's a pretty cool idea, but maybe we do that on like, on like indie shows, but like, let's not do that on TBS. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like people do need to kind of keep that in mind. Like, Kenny and the Young Bucks, Kenny especially, I love Kenny Omega. I think he's him and Bryan Danielson, I think, are the two best in-ring wrestlers in the world right now. But he also has a lot of really out there ideas that maybe it's good to have a Cody around to kind of pull some of that back every now and then. You know what I mean?
I love Cody. I love that you love Cody and Charlotte. You're like, you just love the most divisive people on the Twitter sphere. I think Cody's tremendous. I cheered like crazy for him last night. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was so excited. I was so excited when this man came out. I was fired up. Dude, he's just got a presence about him, especially in AEW, where a lot of guys have a presence about him in AEW. But because he does feel so different from everybody else in that company, like it works. And maybe that's why I do think he sticks with AEW. I don't think he actually is going to WWE. But it works in AEW, and he would feel at home in WWE doing this stuff. And let's be honest, WWE has a bigger platform than AEW. They're in more countries. They do more media and stuff. If he truly wants to end racism, like we know he does, WWE is the place to do it, not AEW. AEW is too small to actually end racism.
Well, what about the idea though? I mean, we're seeing. I know Mickie James isn't contracted Impact technically, but like she is an Impact. She's the Knockouts champion. She's going to be in the Rumble, and there are the reports out there, from Sean and stuff about the Iconics. Like they were offered to come back and refused and stuff. So like just maybe, Vince and Nick Khan and the people involved in WWE are actually open to being a part of the Forbidden Door a little bit more. I know it's a long shot, but maybe they work something out with Cody and go, all right, like we'll bring you in, you'll stay contract. Almost like the Brian Pillman situation years ago, like when he went to ECW, but like actually went to WWF, even though WCW thought he was going to be coming back to them. Like you do something like that where it's like, let's make the whole wrestling world think you are not with AEW anymore, and you come to WWE, and almost like the NWO back in the day, like when we were watching that in real time, like we thought that WWF wrestlers were invading WCW because we hadn't seen something like that before. I think maybe something like that with Cody, where like he doesn't have a contract, but he does have an agreement with Vince and with Tony, and it's like, I'm going to go to WWE for like 3 months or whatever, and like the wrestling world is just going to lose their minds over it. And they can figure ways to where it's mutually beneficial for AEW and WWE to have some sort of relationship. Because when you look at it, WWE is really the only company not in this Forbidden Door situation. And I remember, people always forget, remember years back when Jushin Thunder Liger came in and he wrestled Tyler Breeze on TakeOver? Like, I think Triple H for years has wanted to be doing cross promotion, but he's just had all the power taken away from him. Maybe some of the people in power in WWE are willing to actually get involved with other companies, because WWE's buzz is just on a downward spiral. They're losing viewers. They're losing the 18 to 49 demo. Like, do something to shake it up and get fans like me excited again. And I think being a part of the Forbidden Door would be a huge thing for them. It'd make it must-watch TV again for someone like me.
I'm not sure. I don't think they want to try to help AEW at all. But I do think that if they can steal Cody and they can offer him a big deal, and he ain't coming in on like some 3-month deal. If they're signing Cody, they're signing Cody for big money, and they're doing probably a long-term type of thing, which I think it'd be great for WWE. I don't see them working with AEW at all. It'd be cool as a wrestling fan if all these companies just kind of work together. But WWE, I don't think actually has any interest in getting fans like you back. They're more worried about what WWE, the next, straight to DVD movie they can produce and, make money off of that.
The next Choose Your Own Adventure Undertaker Netflix.
They're way more worried about that than like, I wonder how we get Stephen Jensen back to watching Raw weekly.
Very true. I say that all often too, by the way. Like, I'm not ignorant to that fact. Like, the WWE is marketing to kids. Like, I completely understand, like, and I'm just not a part of what they're trying to appeal to anymore. I'm just saying, if they're looking at the ratings and stuff, they're going, we've like lost this entire chunk of our audience that buys the pay-per-views, although they're only like $5 now on Peacock, so that's a little different business model. But like, that's the benefit. I agree. I don't think that they care, but I'm just saying, like, I think people kind of undervalue what the 18 to 49 demo really is as wrestling fans, because although the WWE could have a business model where they're appealing to kids that are like 5 years old to like 13 or whatever, and there's always going to be a new batch of kids that they can attract and bring in as fans of the company, whether they leave as teenagers or adults, they don't really care, because there's just always going to be new fans trickling in. But the 18 to 49, like, we're the ones who like buy the merchandise and bring people to the shows with us and buy tickets. And like, we spend our money on wrestling. When you're a kid, that works too, to a degree. Cause like, if you're 10 years old, you're selling at least 2 tickets, because a 10-year-old kid can't just go to the show by himself. So you got to sell at least a ticket for one of the parents or whoever's bringing them. I mean, there's a strategy to it also, but I'm with you. I don't think WWE cares that they've lost fans like myself, but I also think that at some point they might look at it and be like, we're all still wrestling fans. We're just not watching their show. Like, we're still right there kind of on the peripheral, like circling around the WWE stratosphere, and we'd like to get back in, but they're just not giving us any reason to. And it wouldn't take that much, honestly, to get us back. Like
just
Cody showing up is enough.
Just need Cody.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. So
my spotlight when it comes to AEW is MJF's promo last night. I thought this man cooked CM Punk on the mic, and you can't say that very often, but being there live, I don't know how it came across on television, but being there live, I'm not saying CM Punk was like lost out there because that would be very unfair. But man, his material compared to MJF's material was night and day stuff. And I'm very mixed on MJF. Like when he uses the low-hanging fruit kind of stuff and he has to take the easy shots and like the kind of cringeworthy shots. I'm not real big on that kind of stuff. But when he just like really cuts in and gets something that isn't so low-hanging, but is actually like story driven, like that's when I'm behind MJ. A lot of the stuff that he does in like video packages, I think is very good. And last night, like that felt like very much like a video package promo where he's talking about like you gave up on the fans in Cleveland, you're gonna quit, you left, I'm gonna end your career, you're not gonna get back up and everything. And like the little digs he was taking, but still like really advance the story instead of mentioning he did mention like the podcast stuff and everything, which I thought in this aspect was very good. He's not going the cringe stuff like he does with like Brian Pillman and talking about overdoses and things like that. I don't find any place for that when it comes to the MJS promos. Punk, he was like, I'm not giving up on the fans. I'm back. The fans in Cleveland love me. And then he mentioned Chicago and we would all boo and everything. It's like, I don't know, man. Like MJF was making some points against you. You did leave and you were complaining a lot and, you're back and that's great and everything. But I thought MJF cooked this man on the mic. What do you think of these promos?
I think MJF has cooked CM Punk almost every time they've gone back and forth. Like I think Punk's held his own like in some of the exchanges, but a babyface CM Punk to me is just so much lamer than a heel CM Punk. Like he's still very much to me kind of the I'm happy to be here. The fans love me. I'm doing my whole kind of like return tour and getting the dream matches that you'll want to see. But like that, it almost sandbags him a little bit because I think there's a lot of things he'd really like to say, but if he did, they'd come off very heelish, and he can't do that right now. That said, I mean, there's people that hate me saying this. I think MJF is significantly better all around than CM Punk is. Like I am a way bigger MJF fan than a CM Punk fan. I like CM Punk. I respect CM Punk. I've been very critical on his MMA career, but like that's a whole other thing. In pro wrestling, I think that CM Punk is still very popular and he's having very good matches. Like, I mean, I loved his match with Kingston in particular. I loved his match with Lee Moriarty. I was there in Atlanta for that. Like CM Punk is doing well. I'm not out here being a CM Punk hater, but if it's me and I'm AEW and I have MJF who's in his like early to mid 20s and we all saw it. I mean, I loved his match with Darby Allin. I thought that was the best match of the year last year. I know I'm kind of alone in that, but like I love that match. MJF can really, really go in the ring, and he tells great stories, and his psychology is great. And like I said, he's young, and he's the best guy on the microphone, I think, in the company. And I'm a little worried that they're going to have CM Punk go over him, and I don't want to see that. I want to see MJF beat CM Punk. Like whether he does it clean or not, that won't happen. I mean, he will cheat. It will be something heelish that gets the job done. But that's on brand for him. As far as the promo battles, I agree. Sometimes MJF, it doesn't hit quite right. And there have been like very cringy things he said, like you've mentioned, but 90% of the time, 95% of the time, even like I'm watching his promos going, dude, the balls on this kid. Like, I mean, because, I mean, he grew up with CM Punk posters in his bedroom. You know what I mean? He's going face to face with this dude that, in his own mind, he's marking out, like, I can't believe I'm yelling at CM Punk right now. But he's not afraid to go there and, like, really put it all on the line in these promos. So I agree. I thought that MJF won that promo battle. That was a 10-7 round for MJF, in my opinion.
I thought MJF destroyed him in the promo, and then he laid him out afterwards. When he sat on his chest, cross-legged, and like, I'm going to end your career where it began. It's like, oh man, MJF was fantastic, absolutely fantastic in that entire segment. And I'm back and forth on him. I think as a wrestler, he's proven a lot and continues to get better. But that promo segment last night, I thought that was one of his best. And I don't have full recollection of the Thanksgiving promo. That was a much better showing from CM Punk. I thought both guys did really well, and that I do think I gave that slightly to MJF last night. I'm with you though. I don't feel like it was close. I don't know how it came across on television, but Punk in the building felt like he was a little off kilter compared to the usual confident CM Punk when it comes to this stuff. It felt like he was going more like cheap pop kind of direction instead of actually arguing what CM Punk or what MJF was trying to say. You don't see that too often out of CM Punk.
Yeah, I agree. And JJ mentioned in the chat that MJF sitting on CM Punk's chest at the end. I thought that was great. People are comparing that to Kento, which I get the comparison because but I think that was really more so like the pipe bomb, right? Like him sitting Indian style on CM Punk's chest while he was pipe bombing him.
I think it was like almost both. I do think it was way more pipe bomb stuff, but we know the thing with Kenta and CM Punk and the go to sleep. So it could have been a little Easter egg to Kenta as well. Regardless, I thought MJF was great. I'm looking forward to that match next week. I'm with you. I think MJF should win that match. I don't know if he will, but I really think he should win that match because I've liked CM Punk's run. I've said it for a very long time. I need more meat on the bone with CM Punk. And like he said it last night. He's like, "You tired of me talking? Like I'm out here." He's like, "I'm tired of talking. I want to wrestle." And then of course he talks for 20 minutes because MJF won't fight him. But like I need that heelish, dickish CM Punk that MJF referenced last night and Eddie Kingston referenced in their lead up to their match. Like that's the Punk that I need because this happy-go-lucky, hey, I'm here and it's a new town. I'm ready to wrestle and we got a great show for you tonight, everybody. I don't need that. I don't need that guy. I want the guy who does have that edge to him with this stuff. And I don't think we're going to see that until he finally loses a match. And so go ahead and get that out of the way with CM Punk and then with MJF and then bring that CM Punk out.
In what better place to have that all happen than Chicago? Like if MJF pinned him in Chicago,
the heat, Stephen Jensen.
Yeah, I love that. And part of me wants to think that like it won't be over in Chicago. Like they'll drag this to the pay-per-view, but like something big will happen in Chicago that gets even more heat on MJF. And here's a little Easter egg for people too. Since we are covering more indies on this show, I'll give y'all something to watch after you watch this show here. If you haven't seen it, a lot of people were talking about how MJF brought up the Colt Cabana thing. Didn't do it by name, but we all knew what he was talking about with the lawsuits and suing people and stuff. In wrestling lore, Colt Cabana is MJF's father. And a lot of people don't know this. But like on the indies, you can actually find, there was a match in particular, I can't remember what company it was. It might have been AEW. I really can't remember. But literally they did a match years ago where Colt Cabana and MJF were in the ring together and the crowd was singing Cats in a Cradle, like Cats in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon. And they were playing catch with one another. Like Colt Cabana was teaching MJF how to throw a baseball, like father-son moment. And like, so I'd recommend y'all check that out because there's a long history actually of MJF and Colt Cabana being linked together. So it's a little extra cherry on top that like he did bring up the CM Punk thing last night. The CM Punk and Cabana thing.
I'm searching this. It's at AEW. If you just Google search Colt Cabana MJF play catch, it's the first video on there. And there's a couple videos on it actually. So yes, there you go. My God, Stephen Jensen with the knowledge there. I kind of thought Cabana was going to come out last night, and because Punk was dressed to wrestle, and I thought MJF was going to bring out Cabana to wrestle him. I don't know how much we're going to see Punk and Cabana interact on television. My gut tells me not at all because there seems to be some really bad feelings there. If they were going to do it, especially now learning of this, this would be the time to do it. It would seem, and until hopefully, time continues to heal some wounds between these two. But if they're going to do it as far as striking with an actual storyline, this would be the time to do it. I don't think they will. And I think there's actual not great feelings between those two. And so they're probably just best off not even going down that road. But man, good Easter egg from Jensen. Everyone check out that video with
and another possible Easter egg there too would be if they ever do go towards Cabana and CM Punk on AEW, and like they want to either resolve this or whatever they want to do on screen. Ace Steel's available now too. He trained those guys, and like he was with WWE up until recently, and you could bring him in as kind of like the middleman of like trying to get them to figure things out. Like there's a lot you can do with a story like that. So
there you go. Good stuff. Colin Matthews says he would speculate whether Kyrie turns up at the Stardom pay-per-view this Saturday. We can speculate that Kyrie might turn up at the Rumble on Saturday. That is a report that her name has been talked about. So we'll see with Kyrie. I imagine they've got some type of surprises planned for the Rumble, men's and women's. They revealed a lot of the women's surprises, but I think they'll probably have more. And then the men's, they always have some surprises. I've seen the names out there from a couple different websites that I won't spoil it for anybody, but it does seem like they got some good surprises up their sleeves. And so we're going to move on to the other category. And again, this is kind of like Impact, New Japan, MLW, NWA, companies that have television and have a presence, whether it be in America. New Japan's obviously the biggest company in Japan, but they do have a presence in America. New Japan Strong, things like that, but aren't technically indies. And for mine, I want to talk about Matt Cardona and him just completely trashing the NWA in an interview with Busted Open. First off, he said Trevor Murdoch treats him like shit, or he treated him like shit in WWE, and now he buried him for his Twitter followers. He says, when I was 6, I watched the NWA. I thought it sucked, thought everything was old and outdated and boring. 30 years later, it's the same thing. It still sucks. It's still boring. It's still dated. And he talks about living the nostalgia, living in the past, and how there needs to be like energy and everything. And a big part of me knows Cardona is working here. I mean, he is signed to the company. In some aspects, it's obviously not an exclusive deal, but he's getting paid by that company. So he is playing this heel and going against tradition and everything. But these comments kind of strike because a lot of people have the same feeling when it comes to NWA of like, all right, cool, you're doing nostalgia stuff, but there is a difference between doing nostalgia and keeping guys like Tyrus on the roster who are big guys that can't work like the NWA like kind of used to have, and then actually pushing your product forward with whether it be an updated set or just kind of forward-thinking ideas. And I think Cardona is tying a lot of that together because it does seem like NWA is pushing their product forward a little. Like Darius Lockhart is an easy example of, I think he should be one of their next champions. But like they got Trevor Murdoch as the champion. Aldis held the title forever. There should be some forward thinking with the NWA and not just let's rely on nostalgia. Let's rely on nostalgia. Studio show, no entrance music, small venue, and all this stuff. Like I think Cardona made some points with these comments.
Yeah, I agree. One thing, it's a double-edged sword with the NWA because on one hand, I like that they do all the things you mentioned because they are a true alternative. Like they're, for better or worse, they are different than AEW and WWE and a lot of these other companies, New Japan. It is something different. Unfortunately for the NWA, I think there's this a really small percentage of fans that are really clamoring for that type of show in 2022. When you have a guy like Tyrus, everything outside of the ring aside, because I know there's people who don't like him for things that don't have to do with wrestling, but we'll talk strictly wrestling. He might be the worst in-ring wrestler on television. He's awful. Yeah. That heart punch is just pathetic. I mean, it's just, and like they've built him like he's the most unbeatable guy on the whole show. I'm terrified that he'll win the end. Well, I shouldn't even say terrified at this point, but I feel like he's on his way to being the world champion there at some point. And it's like, and then what? What are you thinking if you do something like this? Like, and I'm not saying they should do that. I actually would advocate the opposite. I don't think they should. But then again, I don't think he should be their television champion, and he is. So it's like, or North America. What do they call the North American champion? Champion. I always get confused with their belts, but
or they have the national title and then they have the television title. So I think it's just the national title.
Okay, there you go. So yeah, I don't know, man. Like I think Murdoch, I don't think he's that bad, but I do it's interesting hearing Cardona say this stuff because it's like, I would too if I was Cardona. Like, you're out there, like, kind of changing the wrestling business. You're showing up in GCW and winning their title. You're the number one contender over an Impact for their title. You're becoming number one contender over an NWA, and like, you got all this buzz about you, and you're self-made, and you got the action figures and the YouTube channel and the Twitch and this and that. And it's like, and then you go to the NWA, and it's just like, oh, this is kind of lame. Like Tyrus and Murdoch and like. You know what I mean? He seems like the most exciting thing about that entire show, and he's barely been there at all. I don't even dislike Trevor Murdoch, to be honest. I just don't think if you're a company that wants to create buzz in 2022 that you want him as your world champion. And I'd say the same about Nick Aldis for what it's worth. Like, you need to do it's too old school. It is an alternative, but I think it's too old school for the modern fan. And I just think there's just not a lot of interest. So it was very interesting to hear Cardona say that stuff because I'm sure he meant it all. Like, I could totally believe that him and Hawkins, when they went into WWE, they got big leagued by guys like Trevor Murdoch. And now the tables have kind of turned where, yeah, Murdoch's NWA World Heavyweight Champion, but who really cares, unfortunately? Like, Cardona would, for better or worse, like, because I'm a big Cardona fan, and I think he could bring a lot of eyes to the NWA potentially, especially if he brought the NWA World Title to like a GCW show or something. Like, I think that'd be huge for NWA to just get more exposure on other shows that like are a bigger deal right now. So yeah, I don't know. Like, do you think that they're going to put the world title on the world's heavyweight title on Cardona?
I think they should, because I think they will actually get buzz on that. I mean, Cardona, there's a lot of truth in every joke, right? And there's a lot of reality in his comments, even if he is working. But when he says like this guy doesn't have 10,000 Twitter followers, and here he is pushing 2 million, like 2 million people don't watch the NWA. I don't know how many people watch that show. Even I know Cardona's probably got like a lot of bots. Maybe not a lot of them are active and things like that. But even if you take 25% of that, that's still more people than watch that show. I gave up on that show a while ago. It was awful. Some of the worst television I've ever watched. It seems like it's gotten a little bit better now that I've been able to acquire some new talent and everything, and they've been able to sort of refocus. But Trevor Murdoch as your world champion in 2022, it ain't going to do a whole lot. At least if Cardona has the title, like he can be a heel pretty much everywhere with it and wanting to like elevate it. He can go to GCW with it and really be a heel. Like, but he can like put over the NWA while he buries the NWA and its tradition on the NWA. He can go to GCW and like put over the NWA and its tradition and like lift it on that program. So he can be a heel everywhere, but like a different kind of heel depending on which promotion he goes to or which television show he shows up at. So I would put the belt on Cardona 100% because he's proven, look what he did with GCW. Impact, it's not working quite as well because he does sort of feel WWE light in Impact, and I don't think that's through any fault of his own. But certainly in all these other promotions that he shows up, he feels much different. He feels reinvigorated, and I mean he has something about him that is drawing people in. And so, yeah, I'd put the belt on him 100%.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. And just for what it's worth, I don't know what the Fight TV numbers, but I just looked at the power numbers on YouTube and stuff. And I mean, some of them are, 30, 40,000 viewers total. The NWA USA shows are getting like less than 10, like between like 3 to 10,000 viewers and stuff. So
yeah, we're going to outdraw that shit. Everyone's going to watch us. They're going to put the belt on us soon enough, Jensen.
Everyone, speaking of Cardona, do you want to segue that into my spotlight?
Yeah. So your spotlight, it has to do with Cardona and Impact. So let them know.
Yep. So the challenge was put out for Matt Cardona to challenge Jordan Grace for the Digital Media Championship. And that, of course, is an intergender wrestling match, a man versus a woman. Now, I'm going to preface this conversation by saying there's a lot of people out there that don't even like the term intergender wrestling because, wrestling's wrestling. But for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to use the term intergender because it makes the conversation easier to understand. My spotlight this week is that, and we'll also, I'll bring this up too, because I know you wanted to, there's, this today, Caleb with a K is going to be a part of the Knockouts tag team title match, which also would be intergender wrestling, men and women wrestling against each other. Now, my spotlight is, I feel that, and I'm going to say the name, I know people don't want me to bring it up, but I have to for the conversation. Pretty much ever since Tessa Blanchard won the Impact World Championship, they haven't really gone back to keep bringing that up on the show, just to highlight or spotlight women as like world champion level wrestlers in Impact. And I think that they should, because they have talents like Jordan Grace and Deonna Purrazzo, and they recently got Masha Slamovich and Mickie James, and they got a lot, Rachel Ellering. There's a lot of women there that I feel like on a show like Impact, where the audience, the expectation's already there. I don't know how well, for better or worse, I don't know how well this idea works in an AEW or WWE. I don't know. But as far as for Impact, they've already proven that the audience likes these types of matches and that they will accept a champion of any gender. And they just want to see good matches and stories that make sense. So, for years I've been saying, like, why aren't they pushing Ace Austin? Why aren't they pushing Willie Mack? Why aren't they pushing Chris Bay? And if you're not going to push them, like, push the women in those spots. Like, push Jordan Grace. Like, Jordan Grace versus Moose, I think, is a sellable match for Impact. Like, Deonna Purrazzo versus... Huh?
I don't know about Moose.
Well, no. I'm just... Well, he's the world champion there. That's why I say it.
Yeah,
I know what I mean.
I understand. Yeah.
We'll say, but... Okay, but you know the point I'm trying to make. Yeah, Jordan Grace was, she was involved in the X Division title scene years back, but hasn't really been a part of that lately. So that's kind of my spotlight that I wanted to bring up for Impact, is just the idea that, yes, Impact does do intergender matches way more often than any of these other companies we're talking about. But I'm not really talking about like mixed tag matches or like digital media championship and that kind of stuff. I'm talking like, I'd like to see, in particular, Jordan Grace and Deonna Purrazzo and others, but they're the two that really, really, really stick out to me as, like, I think they should be involved with the X Division title and they should be involved with the world title, because the talent's there, and Impact proved with Tessa, like, they will go all the way with the woman as their world champion, and the audience will accept it. The outside the ring Tessa stuff, that's a completely different conversation, but within the actual realm of wrestling, that's what I'm discussing here is. And how do you feel about that? Like, do you think that they should lean more into the really high level women that they have being highlighted as potential like world champions with Impact right now?
Oh, 100%. And you gave the two examples I think most people would look towards is Deonna Purrazzo and Jordan Grace. We've seen Jordan compete in the X Division Scramble a couple years back. So she's been in that kind of stuff. Deonna, you could easily tell the story of like Jonathan Gresham has called her the best technical wrestler in the world. You could easily tell the story of just like, she just outsmarts these guys and like puts them in holds and shit that like they just cannot get out of. It doesn't have to be a power for power type of thing. But when it comes to Jordan, like that's the story you could tell with her is like, all right, especially in the X Division, you've got these like smaller kind of guys. Jordan is just stronger than them. Like, she's just stronger than a guy like Trey Miguel. And you could tell that story. I definitely think there's room for it. And like you said, Impact's done it with Tessa. And JJ said it in the chat, like, before I knew Tessa was trash, I was behind her winning the Impact World title. And Sami Callihan put the best feud, it's pro wrestling. Like, yes, 100%. And that's the thing is, like, take Tessa's personal stuff aside. I know that can be difficult, but like you said, we're having a conversation about what we're seeing on screen. Tessa was very believable as the world champion, and it felt like it was her time as being the world champion, and it felt different, and it felt like it could have been something, except she literally screwed it up and opened her mouth like the day before she was supposed to win the title. And that's, and that's what hurt it ultimately, and they haven't really gone back to that. I feel like you can trust it with Deonna Purrazzo and Jordan Grace, and those are the two women who it fits them. It easily fit them. I think right now it could be difficult with the world title because you do have somebody like Moose, and even if you want to set aside personal stuff and just look at on screen, Moose is a very big dude, and maybe they just don't want that visual coming off. Same with like Morrissey. Cardona is the great example though of, Cardona is going to face Jordan Grace for the digital title. And I don't think this digital title like means a whole lot. It's pretty much an afterthought, a secondary thing. But like, they're probably going to have a good match whenever it happens. And we will get some intermixing there. I don't know what their plans are for the digital title. I think you can do some intergender stuff with it. They clearly have plans to do it. But yeah, I don't think it's a big title. I would much rather see like a Deanna and a Jordan in an X Division spot right there and going after those titles. You can even have them go after the tag team titles a little bit. Get Good Brothers with Gallows, the visual. I get you. The visuals can be concerning in some of this stuff, right? And I think that's why.
For sure. Yep.
And I think that's why sometimes a lot of these companies will stay away from it. And that's why the X Division makes sense. And depending on who your world champion is, it would make sense. If Matt Cardona is your world champion, obviously Cardona, Grace, they could wrestle each other. Doesn't seem like a big deal. When your world champion is Moose, or maybe it's W. Morrissey, then it becomes a little bit tougher to pull off without people looking at it and being like, ooh, I don't know about that. It doesn't look right.
Yeah. And I think part of this too for me is like for instance, like Josh Alexander, I think that he should win their title again. It was really weird how they had him build with the X Division title. He blew everyone's tits off with that TJP Iron Man match. And like he cashes in for option C, and like he has this great run with the title and then wins the world title and it's gone within minutes. And I feel like they've got to put him back in that spot. Otherwise, what was the point of all of that? But the reason I bring him up is because he could very well be the next Impact World Champion. And he had a match with Ruby Soho recently on the Indies. That was really, really good. And even then the visual is a little strange, but then the match gets going and you're like, this is a damn good match. And like, you just kind of forget that there's like kind of the big size difference and all that stuff. Even in like deathmatch wrestling, there's a woman, Sadika, who when I first started watching her do death matches, I was like, really uncomfortable because there was these men going out there and hitting the shit out of her with like light tubes and glass and everything you could think of, meat skewers and gossip plates and everything that they use on these death matches now. But like she held her own so strongly that now like I feel bad for the dudes that she's wrestling because like she's out there laying it in more than they are. So it's like, so I think that it's just one of those things like Masha Slamovich I keep bringing up, because she's had a really great run on the Indies, mainly against men. And I think that she's someone that I think Impact Wrestling could really, really build to be one of their top people very, very fast because the talent's there and she's super believable. So like, so I guess that's kind of where I'm going with the conversation. It's kind of like you're saying. I get that there's the visual differences, and I get that, but sometimes you go into it thinking that, but then the talent is just so high level that you forget it while the match is happening and you just wind up seeing a great match. So, and I think Impact is capable of doing that in their X Division and their world title scene. And
because Impact has done it before, it's less, I think, like pushback from the fans. Like you mentioned, is if you try to do this in AEW, I don't think AEW fans would mind it. A lot of those women on the roster have wrestled men. You mentioned Ruby Soho as a perfect example. Thunder Rosa is another one. So I don't think it would be that big of a deal if like AEW did it. WWE might have a little bit. I know WWE is very worried about like the visual of that stuff, and that's why they're not going to do it. Or
they teased it with Nia Jax years back.
They did, and then again they still got cold feet about everything. So yeah, they'll do it like in spots, but I don't think that you're gonna really see them go for it. You're certainly not going to see them, I don't think see a woman win a men's title or anything, because they've certainly established like, hey, the women's championship is just as value as the men's championship. But a lot of the women love wrestling the men too. And that's why you see so many of these women compete in intergender matches on the indies and everything. And a lot of the women will say that, you've got to wrestle men to improve, because the women's wrestling just isn't quite as far as long as men wrestling. It's just, it hasn't been around quite as much, especially at this level. So wrestling the men will just help you improve a little bit more. And we've talked about before, Jade Cargill is like a perfect example. It's like, she is just so much bigger than a lot of these women in AEW. They're like, being in there with the men probably help her improve more than just like her, kicking these women and everything, because she might feel she has to be protective with them, where she goes in there against somebody like Dustin Rhodes, she'll be like, all right, Dustin, she can just lay it in and everything. And so a lot of these women like wrestling the men because it will help them improve. And when it comes to the visual, you got to stay away from that in some aspects. At least I think companies want to stay away from that in some aspects. You mentioned Josh Alexander. Like, that is a perfect person where if he's your world champion and he goes out there and wrestles Deonna Purrazzo, the visual is fine. The match is going to be great. That's just something I think that everybody would want to see. And I don't think anybody would be like, oh, I don't know about this, because they go out there and, like you said, once the match kind of gets going and everything, it'll certainly, especially the way Alexander and Deonna wrestle, nobody's going to be like, oh man, he's like really hurting her in this type of thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And also to your point, like, just so people don't get the wrong idea, when Jeremy talks about, like, you know, the women is just taking a little bit longer to kind of get to the same spot in a lot of these scenarios. It's the same kind of thing that in mixed martial arts, like, like in women's MMA, like, it took a minute and of course they were training with men and women in the gym and stuff. They were women only fighting women. And that's a totally different thing, fighting versus pro wrestling. That's a whole other conversation. But my point is, like, right now, if you watch the UFC, because it took some time, but like right now, you see a lot of really, really, really high level women's fights, like, that are just as good as the men's fights. And like, so it's a process. And I think that what Jeremy's saying is like totally on point, because I think in wrestling, you have a unique opportunity where you can do men versus women on screen, and you can do that kind of stuff. In mixed martial arts, that's a tough sell, watching men punch women.
Oh yeah, you could never do
that. Right. But in wrestling, you have this unique opportunity to really kind of like you're saying, you know, maybe there isn't so much of a pool of like these high level women for them to work with, but if you can work the high level women in with the high level men, everybody gets better together. So like, so yeah, we're on the same page, man. So yeah, if you're hearing this Impact Wrestling, you know, Deonna Purrazzo and Jordynne Grace, because that's the thing. And that's the reason we keep bringing up Tessa, is like, I think Jordynne Grace is every bit as good as Tessa Blanchard is. And then the same goes for Deonna. So like, if she's good enough to be the world champion in Impact, I think those two are as well.
100%. I think Deonna is someone that you could just easily tell that story with. And same with Jordynne. Like I said, Jordynne in like the X division would be fantastic, because they've said it, like, it's not about weight limits, about no limits and stuff. Like, Deonna could Deonna, she could technically wrestle with anybody and slow them down and ground them, and Jordynne could just toss them around, and it would be fantastic. They certainly have the talent to pull that off, and whether or not they go back to it, I don't know. Let's move on to the indie spotlights. And for me, I mean, GCW is coming off their biggest weekend ever with the Hammerstein show, the World on GCW. And to pinpoint one thing that I think will kind of lead to an overarching discussion of all of this, but the Effie and Jeff Jarrett match is the one thing that I want to kind of touch on, because this was a GCW match in that, like, hey, we're going to bring in this legend who and who's going to create some buzz and everything. We're going to put them against one of our guys. And especially in this venue, this environment, this stage, it seemed like Effie should have gone over here, and he didn't. And I didn't like that booking call. I didn't. JJ loves Jeff Jarrett, and I get it. I did not like that booking call. I thought that one of Cardona and Jarrett would win because they like to do the heat and everything. And they put Effie over so strong in the buildup. Brett Lauderdale's putting him over, and like, there is no other Effie out there. And it's like, you just had him lose to Jeff Jarrett. No offense to Jeff Jarrett. This man is a tremendous grifter. I hope I have the longevity and make the money that Jeff Jarrett does, and I can just go anywhere and no one, and I can sell gold bars to people and things like that. But like, dude, Effie should have won this match. And I thought this, like, Effie losing was almost a microcosm of like the overall big picture of what went wrong with GCW at the Hammerstein show. What'd you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with literally everything you said. It was especially confusing when, like you mentioned, Brett Lauderdale, before the pay-per-view went on air, like, the two people he brought up about, like, there's no other Effie and there's no other Alley Catch, and both of them lost to non-GCW wrestlers on the show. That was very strange. I will say this. I really like the Jeff Jarrett My World guitar riff, like, theme song Yeah.
That finish, and by the way, the finish was great. Like Effie no-selling the guitar shot and then taking the stroke with the guitar wrapped around his neck and everything. That was a tremendous finish. I won't knock that at all. I just didn't think he should have won the match.
No, I completely agree. I think it was counterproductive. And Effie, I mean, people forget the whole Effie Jeff Jarrett feud started because Effie was cutting a promo right before the Battle Royal that Homicide won, and his whole thing was he wanted to go after the GCW World Championship. And now it's like, not only is he not fighting for the championship, he's losing to Jeff Jarrett. Like, what happened here? Like, this guy should be one of the next in line for a GCW World title shot. He's one of the most popular guys they have. He's one of the best in-ring guys, one of the best talkers, got a great look, great entrance, everything that you want out of a star. And he's like, he brings something totally different to the table. Yeah, it was just interesting how they decided to do that. I don't necessarily like it, and I'm a little concerned depending on where this leads, because it's hard for me to believe this was like a one-off. Like, Jeff Jarrett's got to be a part of GCW going forward, because otherwise I don't know why you would have him beat Effie. And a big criticism out of the Hammerstein show was it wasn't like watching a traditional GCW show. Like, and that was for a lot of reasons. Like, they couldn't do the tubes and the glass and the gussets and the meat skewers and the pizza cutters and all that stuff, because it was Hammerstein, it was New York, the rules are different and all that. But on top of that, like, it's like the show didn't really know exactly what it wanted to be. It was like kind of a GCW show, kind of like an ECW reunion type of vibe, kind of indie wrestling, but also kind of sports entertainment. And I don't like, let me throw this out there. Do you think there's a possibility, like, there's a lot of speculation that Jeff Jarrett and Conrad would want to start their own company right now because there's so much talent available and all this stuff. What if the story is that the company that Jeff Jarrett and Conrad want to buy is GCW? Ooh. And that's where this is heading, where like it's like some sort of much bigger story. And that's why Jarrett won, is like, because he's going to be there, and maybe he is trying to persuade Brett to sell it to him or something like that. Like, I'm not saying he does this in real life. I'm just saying that's what the story is, because there's so much speculation about him wanting a company again. So I'm just trying to think of like, why would they have him beat Effie, I guess, is at the end of the day.
I think that story is, and this is going to sound like I'm burying it first. I promise I'm not. Let's play out. I think that story is as likely as the story of Jeff Jarrett just coaxed Brett Lauderdale for a lot of money, and he came in and he beat Effie and he's never seen again. And I say it's as likely because I think that story is very likely too. So
right.
I can see that playing either way, honestly. Like I could totally see that type of, like, them doing something like that of like, hey, let me buy the company. And this is like a bigger storyline, and Effie has to fight to keep like the GCW name type of thing. I could also just see this of being like Jeff Jarrett wanted to work Hammerstein. He's like, Effie seems like a cool name to work. He's got some buzz and everything. I'll come back and I'll do my return match with him. He got a bunch of money out of Lauderdale. He got a nice payday. He showed up on SmackDown 2 nights before. He got a nice payday out of it. He got his name up to promote his podcast and whatnot, and he's just never seen in GCW again.
I think that's very possible too. I could see it going either way. Or maybe it just leads to another Jeff Jarrett versus Effie match, and Effie gets that win back in like more of a GCW show where like they can do more, but at the same time, it's like
the same. Like
this is Hammerstein. That's how I feel too. It's like this, and I almost compared it to WrestleMania, but that's not even true anymore. Now WrestleMania is used to set up things where it used to be the blow off to everything. Now you see WrestleMania rematches the next month and all this stuff. I don't want to see that in GCW. Like, Hammerstein should have been like their big Super Bowl type show. And it almost should have been almost like a reset of like, okay, now we got all this new stuff going forward. I don't want to see a bunch of rematches. Like, I thought it was very, very strange to have Ruby Soho beat Allie Katch, especially clean on the show for the same exact reasons. Like, Ruby Soho was great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not nothing against her, but like Allie Katch, especially in a company that doesn't feature that many female talents, like Allie Katch is a constant on that show. And she's one of the top people that they have in GCW. And she just loses to Ruby clean. It was just like, why would you do this? Like it doesn't make any sense to me. So there were just some questionable booking calls. But like you said, it could have literally come down to something as simple for Jeff Jarrett as that was just the agreement, and like he didn't want to lose, and he got his money, and he got paid, and he had the match. And for all we know, I doubt this is the case, but for all we know, Tony Khan was like, we don't want Ruby losing on the show. Like, I don't know. So.
And that was my thought when Ruby won. Like, I kind of always thought Ruby was going to win because of that reason. And Ruby's gone. She's done independent matches where she's lost. I think she's mainly like the Alex Shelley match. She lost, and again, she's wrestling men and everything. And maybe Tony Khan just didn't want her losing to Alley Catch. I don't know what the deal was, because he knew this was a big show. Like when she loses to Alex Shelley or Josh Alexander, it's like, okay. They're big shows for those companies, but like they ain't as big as this GCW show here. So that was kind of my thought, is why I didn't think Ruby was going to lose this match. Although I do agree with you, she probably should. No one's going to care if Ruby Soho loses this match. Are you kidding me? No one cares. But yeah, the Jarrett one was way more egregious in my opinion than Ruby beating Allie. That one was just, what are you doing? Like, come on, let Effie win. Let everyone sing Elton John. Let everyone have a good time. And then, no, Jeff Jarrett wins. And I think he's out. He got his gold bars and done.
Well, the even more frustrating thing with the Effie situation for two reasons. One, Ruby Soho is at least like an active, like upper card, current AEW wrestler. Jeff Jarrett is like a retired wrestler who pops up completely randomly. And he's now like this pseudo Undertaker character out of nowhere that like just kind of just happened. But on top of that, it's like, it's not a good look for Effie. And I love Effie. And I hate saying this, but like the whole story was built on like, it just made him look foolish because of all the stuff he said leading up to it. It makes it look like he just couldn't deliver on everything he said he was going to do for himself and the company. And then, and I know like JJ is saying he's a legend. Dude, trust me. Like, I've been watching Jeff Jarrett since he was wearing the things that connected from his pants up to his shoulders with the white stripe looking things and the ain't I great. And I've been watching Jeff Jarrett a long time. I actually like Jeff Jarrett a lot more than most fans probably do. I probably like Jeff Jarrett on GCW more than most fans probably did. But it's the outcome that is the concern. Like you're saying, so I'm not, this isn't like a roast Jeff Jarrett fest for me. It really isn't. It's more of a Effie's one of the top 5 most popular people in GCW. Why is he losing to Jeff Jarrett kind of conversation?
It should be a roast Jeff Jarrett fest. He's going to buy Progress. That's the real promotion that he's going to buy. Jensen, I thought you were going to go GCW as well with your indie spotlight, but you threw me off with yours.
I did. I went a little different. Just a heads up, if y'all want like really deep dive thoughts on the GCW Hammerstein show, the World on GCW, myself and Righteous Reg did the Fightful post show the night of. So like there's like an hour and a half of like some real deep thoughts that I had on that show. So y'all can check that out after this right here at Fightful. But my indie spotlight is this past weekend at Action Wrestling in Tyrone, Georgia. There is a new IWTV Independent Wrestling World Champion crowned, and he is from the SWATs of Atlanta, Georgia. He is the former Southern Underground Pro Bone Storm champion, the former Action Wrestling champion, the reigning 2021 Scenic City Invitational Tournament champion, the Mack of all trades. AC Mack won the IWTV title from Alex Shelley. The show was, I'm not exaggerating, that was one of the best wrestling shows I might have ever watched. Not even just in recent memory. Like, I love that entire Action Wrestling show. You can find it on IWTV right now. I highly recommend checking it out. Use code Fight Talk if you want to. That always helps me out when you use that code. But like that show from start to finish, the crowd was hot as hell. The match itself, like the main event, was incredible. AC Mack is a super, super baby face in that building. He's a heel and most times, but in that building, he's a massive baby face because that's where Action Wrestling runs out of Tyrone, Georgia. And the crowd was, they would not have accepted anything less. Like AC Mack was leaving that building with the championship. The way that they did it, where Matt Griffin, who's the promoter for Action, and Scott Hensley, and these guys are all they're all pounding on the ring apron, and the wrestlers clear out of the locker room, and everybody is cheering on for AC Mack to beat Alex Shelley. And when he did it, he got the job done. The place went crazy. He cut this, one of the best promos I've ever heard in wrestling. Because for those of you who might not know, AC Mack is black and he's gay. He's openly gay, and I believe he is the first ever openly gay world champion in wrestling history. And he means a lot to representation in wrestling. A lot of things that a lot of fans really are clamoring for, like, diversity and representation. And not only is he those things, he earned it 1 billion%. None of this was handed to him for any reason other than he is an incredible pro wrestler. He's an even better talker than he is a wrestler. And I mean, he's a great wrestler, but he's a exceptional talker. And he went out there and he earned that championship. I've been watching him do it for years. I've probably been following his career for probably 4 or 5 years now, consistently. And watching his rise to get this championship belt, it really hit me hard. Like, I was like, dude, I was just so happy to see him win that title. And I can't wait to see what he does with it. And can I break that news right now on the show?
Yeah.
We're going to have AC Mack on the show next week, right here on the Spotlight. So we're going to actually talk to him about this title win, and we're going to talk to him about the representation and how he feels about being this champion. And just, I can't wait to talk to him because he's a great dude and he's a great wrestler. So I wanted to make that my spotlight this week, was AC Mack winning the IWTV Independent Wrestling World Championship.
So you mentioned that I will educate you a little bit to WWE because you don't keep up with it too much. And I've said that you'll educate me to the independent wrestling stuff, that a lot of stuff that you watch, because I don't always watch a lot of, like, the GCW stuff. I'll check out. If it ain't GCW, I'm typically not checking out too much of the stuff if it's on IWTV and Fight, unless it's something like Terminus. So I don't know too much about AC Mack. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I don't know a whole lot about AC Mack. I did not know he was openly gay. Like, that's how little about AC Mack that I knew. I found this out after he won the title because I did the results and I looked into it a little bit more. And then when you said that you were going to make this your spotlight, I was like, all right, well, I have to watch this match now. So I watched the match. I did not watch the entire event, but I did watch the match. And the crowd was the first thing that I noticed, because this crowd was off the charts in his favor of, like, all right, yeah, AC Mack's got to win this thing. And you mentioned, like, the wrestlers coming out and pounding the ring, very, very much like the ROH when Gresham won the title and everything. And then as far as, like, his wrestling goes, I really love this match with Alex Shelley. I'm a big Alex Shelley fan. I think he's one of the best out there. And I really, really love this match. Like, the story of, like, him working on his arm so he couldn't hit his finisher, the kill shot, right? You got that name right?
Oh, the Mac 10. It's the
Mac 10. Okay, sorry.
It's basically a pedigree where he crosses his opponent's arms, but
right.
he couldn't keep the arms because his shoulder was being worked over. Yeah.
Yes. I think the announcers call it the kill shot a couple of times, and it's like the kill shot is in, like, this is his finishing move, and that confused me. So yes, the Mac 10, he couldn't hit that, and, like, so finally, like, he kept going for it, and then, like, he just realized, like, all right, I can't do this. And when he's locked into Shelley's submission, he just rolls him up out of it and gets the victory. Like, I thought this was a tremendous match, taken to another level by the crowd. And yeah, I don't know the background of AC Mack. I was not as invested as Jensen was, and I obviously knew the results and everything, but I thought his work was tremendous. And the promo stuff, I thought his pre-match promo was great, where he's like, you've been running from me. Like, finally, no more of that. Like, I'm number one in these rankings. I've been waiting for this title shot. Here we go. My home turf. I got it. And then his post-match promo talking about everything. Like, I thought this was a standout performance, and somebody that now I'm definitely going to keep more of an eye on. And I cannot wait to talk to him next week. You set that up, Jensen, and this was something that I'm really, really excited about to talk to AC Mack next week.
Yeah, me too. I know he's looking forward to it as well. He was really, really excited when we were discussing him coming on. So, this is something cool too, because I think if people go back and kind of watch his back catalog of his matches over the years, you'll see a very, very different wrestler than what you saw on this past weekend. And the reason is, when he's a heel, I compare it kind of to, like, Ric Flair in his prime. He goes out there and he gets beat up the entire match, and then he'll just, like, kick you in the nuts and roll you up, or kick you in the nuts and hit his Mac 10. And it's like, And sometimes he does the extended clip where he'll hit you with the max 10, but keep his arms locked and pick you back up and hit it again on you, which I always like. But the point is, usually he's the guy, he's like the cowardly, like just barely getting by, barely getting through, somehow getting the win after getting his butt kicked the entire match. But as a baby face, because there's been a few scenarios recently where like the Action Wrestling show and then the Scenic State Invitational in 2021, because they're people who have been following his career. It's really cool how it's progressed, because he's gone from like, he was the Action Wrestling champion for like probably around like 2 years straight, if not longer. I mean, a long time. He was so close to winning the SCI tournament year after year after year. And he finally did it this past year. And like all these things are finally falling into place for him. But it's one of those things where if you watch one of his matches going into it thinking like, wait a second, like Steven said that he was like this incredible in-ring worker, like this match with Alex Shelley. If you watch him as a heel, he wrestles completely differently than he wrestles as a babyface. So it's really cool because you see a real character change as a heel and a babyface. A lot of the time what you see in wrestling, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying usually they just they wrestle the same, but they instead of wrestling heels, they wrestle baby faces or vice versa. He is a full on, like a completely different wrestler, whether it's a heel or a baby face. And I really like that. It really freshens it up and gives it something different. So, yeah, I can't say enough good things about that match with Alex Shelley. And I'm glad that you had a chance to watch it, because, I'm kicking myself that I wasn't there live. I was like an hour and a half from the venue and I just couldn't make it before the show was going to start. So I just watched it from home. But, yeah, that was kudos to Action Wrestling and AC Mack and IWTV and everyone involved and Alex Shelley, of course, and everyone involved with all that. I can't say enough good things about that show and that title win.
Yeah, the pop, like that crowd, they were on fire for that match. And as someone who has not seen much of AC Mack, that like I learned a lot about him just in this match. I learned a lot about him just now talking to you, and we're going to learn more about him next week when we talk to him. But I do encourage everyone to check out. If you don't watch the whole show, Jensen said it's one of the best shows he's ever seen. So I encourage everyone to watch the whole show. If you don't watch the whole show, at least check out the main event between AC Mack and Alex Shelley. It's on IWTV. You can use the code Fight Talk to help out Stephen Jensen with that. So yeah, I'm getting it. I'm getting your plugs in for you.
Well, and also keep this in mind. I am a little biased when it comes to these shows because I'm so invested, like especially in companies like Southern Underground Pro, Action, and SCI, because they're all sister promotions of each other that share a lot of the same talent, a lot of the same bookers, and that kind of stuff. So I went into it really, really, really hyped up. Someone from the outside looking in, you might watch the show and think it was good, but you're like, Steven, you're really stretching, thinking it's the best show, one of the best shows you've ever seen. Keep in mind, like these are my companies. So like I go into it with high hopes, and it means even more, I think, when I say that it was as good as it was, because I go in with really high expectations, and this show blew my expectations out of the water. So like, that I just want to throw that out there. Show some love to these smaller companies, man. Like there's so much good wrestling out there.
And that's what we hope to do on this show. And we are going to show them some love. And hopefully people who watch this show will be like, all right, you know what? I will check that out. It got the Stephen Jensen stamp of approval. I will go check that out. So we'll have AC Mack on next week. Again, everybody check out his match with Alex Shelley. Check out his past work. Head over to IWTV. Use the code Fight Talk. Now, Jensen, for the creator spotlight, we have MuscleManMalcolm. People might know him from his interviews. I've transcribed a lot of them. He does great work when it comes to interviews, and we learned a lot about MuscleManMalcolm in this interview. We recorded this on Tuesday. We're going to air it now as part of our show. Jensen, are you ready to go to MuscleManMalcolm? Jensen.
Oh, sorry. This, like, you see how bright it's getting in this room? You see how I hold my face bright like that? Man, I gotta put my shades on. Yeah, let's go to the interview.
Here we go, everybody. Welcome back, everybody, to the Spotlight, and we have our content creator spotlight, MuscleManMalcolm. Malcolm, you are actually taking the spotlight virginity here because this is our debut episode. You're the first person in the content creator spotlight. Please go gentle on us.
Definitely. I'll try. But I'm happy to be here, man. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you joining us, man. If you haven't, everyone, check out MuscleManMalcolm. He is on Twitter at Malcolm Muscle. He is on YouTube at MuscleManMalcolm on YouTube. Go check him out. He's a big time interviewer. He's interviewed everybody from Nick Aldis to Chris Bay. He recently did an interview with him. Calvin Tankman, AJ Francis, Top Dollar just did an interview with him. Malcolm is everywhere interviewing everybody. And I got to ask this first off, how did you get into sort of the interviewing game in wrestling?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I've been doing wrestling, YouTube in general, just making content since like 2012. But I feel like I'm really big into like watching like documentaries and just like learn about wrestling. Right. So like, it's 2022. Like, honestly, like this is like the social media age of professional wrestling. So like every AEW guy has a freaking vlog right now. Like there's so many people that are like just showing their lives out on social media that like just be able to have opportunity to learn more about people, learn more about their story, where they come from, etc. Has always interested me. So just with that in mind, like interviewing these guys and just getting to know them as wrestlers, as people, has always been something that's been pretty cool to me. So just having the opportunity to talk to these guys. I luckily made friends with Lance Hawaii when I was a lot younger, and I got to interview him. I like the process of it, so I was like, let's just keep going and see what happens. So now we're here.
Jensen.
You wanted to go to me? Yeah,
yes,
I thought you had a follow up, Jeremy. Jeez, I'm over here like making sure the sun doesn't get in my eyes. I'm sure you all can see that thing with my blinds. It's like going all over my face. Yeah, dude. Yeah, if you want to lob it over to me, like Malcolm, the first question I had for you is, how old are you?
I'm 22. I'm still in college, my last semester right now.
Yeah, so I that's what I thought. So I watched some of your interviews, and you were mentioning college, and you had mentioned in your Jeff Jarrett interview that you started watching TNA when you were around 11.
Yeah.
So your perspective on wrestling has got to be pretty interesting for somebody who's as young as you are, but interviewing a lot of people that someone like Jeff Jarrett, for instance, you missed his whole run up to TNA. But then, of course, I'm sure you've retroactively went back and watched the stuff that you missed when you were younger or too young to even know what wrestling was. So, I guess how has it been for you as far as like, do you have to do a lot of research into the people you're interviewing or that kind of stuff?
Nah, man, I'm a big mark, so I kind of already knew half this stuff before I go into it. A lot of it's mainly just like I think about just like old storylines and stuff that I've heard before, and kind of just think about like, oh, what about this as a kid caught my interest? So I now just want to talk about like, all right, what's the detail that went behind it that led to my interest being caught when I was younger? So talking to someone like Jeff Jarrett, I mean, I watched his career. I'm big on like watching super old wrestling, like NWA, AWA type stuff. So hearing about Jeff Jarrett's career and watching old TNA stuff and the stuff in WCW, etc. I kind of already knew a decent amount about him, but after that, just look at the Wikipedia page, get the basic information in, and like, all right, bet I already know what to talk about. Let's just go for it.
Are you a fan of or know of Nardwuar, the interviewer out of Canada?
Yes, yeah, I've heard of him.
Okay, I'll ask that because I've noticed part of your interview style, you seem to ask questions that are a little out of the box. Like I think is that a big thing that you think about ahead of time? Is like, I want to ask stuff that they're just not asked often.
Yeah, because like, I mean, like I'm a small wrestling creator, so like the fact that there's so many big guys. I mean, Sean Ross Sapp, obviously, Chris, Denise, etc. Like, there's so many people that are doing it very well on a very bigger platform to me that I just want to ask something like incredibly not off-putting, but like just different that they haven't talked about before, just so it gets clipped and put somewhere else. Because like someone's gonna obviously watch that. I'm like, all right, who's this kid? Never heard of him before. Then they find my channel. They're like, all right, he's decent at most. I might as well subscribe to him.
And that was kind of my question, is how conscious are you of trying to get information that isn't out there already? Because when you are interviewing a lot of these people, some of them do a million interviews. And so as someone who listens to a million interviews, I hear the same stories a lot. And that's something I appreciate about you and your interviews is I will get something new from you to be able to run. So it seems like, how you said you listened, it seems like to Sean, Denise, Chris, anybody else you listen to whether it is, okay, I can take something from their style, or it is, all right, I'm about to interview this person. What did they ask? So I don't repeat this.
Yeah, I kind of do that. I look up a lot of different interviews and just see like, especially more recent ones. So I'm like, all right, they talked about this already. So I was thinking of like, if I think of like a question or two that was going to be asked in that interview, I'm like, all right, maybe since they've talked about it 3 or 4 times, they won't give me that strong of an answer. understandably, because like how many times can you tell the same story? So I mainly just like look through to see older interviews that they've done. I'll watch like the big ones, obviously like Sean, Denise, Chris, etc. Ella J's a great one as well. And kind of just look to see where are they talking about. I'm like, all right, since that's already been covered most likely, let's look at like some other stuff that they maybe just not missed, but just didn't ask. So that's kind of the motive going into it.
Yeah, I was also curious. You said that you started YouTube how long ago?
I started like 2012, 2013, one of those years.
So how old were you around that time?
I was about like 11, 12.
That's wild. So that's kind of what I was getting at is like, so me and Jeremy, we're kind of becoming old heads around here. We're, in our 30s. And back when we were your age, there was no outlet for this. Even when I was in college myself, shout out to Georgia Southern University, GSU. I had to do MMA radio shows on college radio because like YouTube was a thing, but like you couldn't make money off it. It was still really in its infancy. Yeah. And so like, I just wanted to say it's wild here, that perspective of you being that young, getting on YouTube, having an outlet. And is that, I guess, a big part of the motivation too, was like the technology is there. I'm a big fan. Like, why don't I just go for this? Because there's no barrier to entry really.
Yeah, big facts. So like I have like the opportunity, like a radio show at my school as well. I go to Mount St. Mary's University, but it doesn't really interest me that much because like I know what I want to talk about is either like MMA, like you said, or professional wrestling. I know that's not like the strongest talked about thing amongst the campus. So I'm like, all right, I already have this channel. I want to talk to these people. I have a decent enough followers that maybe they might respond. I might as well just DM them and see what happens. And so far I've been hitting so far. So hopefully you keep that train going.
Along with the interviews, you also just do like kind of content videos. Yeah. How much goes into creating those, and how do you try to balance like, okay, I got an interview here, but I really want to do this content video? Because I've noticed just kind of scrolling down the page, like sometimes it'll be loaded with interviews, and then sometimes it'll just be loaded with content videos.
Yeah, that's something I'm honestly still working out and just trying to figure out like, all right, what's like the best like schedule or like concept to like uploading things I want to talk about outside of just interviews, and also having like obviously the interviews itself. Like right now I'm sitting on like 2 videos that talk about like the breaking people that would be breakout stars in the independent scene, because I do that every year and always does pretty well. So it's just trying to figure, I'm like, all right, if I upload this interview, then do I just throw this video up there right after, or it's something I'm still working out. I'm still trying to iron out the little details of it, but I'm also getting into making documentaries. That's coming up like later on, I think April-ish is when I should have most of them completed. So it's kind of like mixing like, all right, interviews and documentaries. How do I upload them and make them make sense all at once? Because like your channel, it's a category or like a catalog of what you've done with your whole life. So it's like, it has to make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, then no one's going to watch that many videos. Like I don't want someone just to watch 1 or 2. I want them to watch like 10 or 12. So it's kind of just something I got like still ironed out. I'm still working on that.
When you're doing your videos, is it all you? Are you doing the interviewing, the recording, the video editing, all that stuff all yourself?
Oh yeah, no, it's all me right now. I mean, I'd love to hire an editor at some point, but until then, I'm gonna do it all.
Well, the reason I asked is because I think that's something that I just think is really valuable in really any industry, especially with like all the different digital stuff you can do now. Like that's something that made me valuable to Fightful, for instance, like years back, was that I knew how to run OBS when there was no Streamlabs, how I knew how to video edit, like being diverse and just kind of a wide range of things, so that kind of when your number gets called, you go, hey, I don't even really do a whole lot of video editing, but I know how to, and they need a video editor. So I'm going to do that. Like they need someone to interview at these events, to go backstage, talk to wrestlers. Like I've done some interviews on my podcast. I've got some experience. I'll do that. Is that part of it too? Just like learn as much as you can so you can kind of do whatever you need to.
Yeah. So like I'm a communication major. So like the big goal in that major for like what a lot of people don't understand, like some people get so like dead set in like one concentration that they have. Like mine's broadcast journalism. Obviously with all the interviews, it kind of makes sense. But like I also want to like venture out into like understanding editing, understanding web design, etc. Like this semester I'm taking a web design class because I know I'm I don't want to say the guy's name right now, but I'm building a website for a guy right now. So I'm like, all right, let me keep learning and actually like go to class for this stuff as well to actually make sure what I'm doing is correct. So like having the idea and having the skill set, I guess the word I'm looking for, to be able to do every little thing to some level of greatness. is important because you never know. Like if YouTube doesn't work out for me, it's like just being a content creator. I'm like, all right, well, I'm a decent editor. I can go edit for whatever company out there that needs it. So I even did like a whole internship last semester where I was like a video editor at a company not too far away from the school. So it's just like if you're a YouTuber, you got to make sure you know like everything across the board. So like you never know if something doesn't work out, you can do something different and still make a name for yourself.
What is your sort of overall aspirations? I know you've been to some shows. I saw you do the DPW interviews. Yeah. Shout out to those guys. Like what is your overall aspirations when it comes to whether it is now video editing or interviewing or other?
Yeah, two things. So I'm trying to be a pro wrestler right now. So obviously, you know, we got big goals in that. And the goal in that and goal for interview, if they both fly in the same thing, hopefully someone from them is watching this right now. I want to go to the NWA badly, so freaking badly. If Billy, you're watching. Hi, nice to meet you. MuscleManMalcolm, greatest wrestling tuber of all time. I want to be an interviewer for the NWA. I want to wrestle for the NWA. I want the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Don't forget the S in the world is important. It's the most important part of that name of the title. That's the goal. I want to be a wrestler. I want to wrestle for NWA. I want to be an interviewer. I want to interview for NWA. I love the NWA. I might be wearing an AEW shirt, but I love the National Wrestling Alliance.
So you sold yourself out. No one can see the shirt. You could have just said you were wearing an NWA shirt. Where are you training at?
Yeah, it's NWA.
Where are you training at?
Where am I training? So I split my time right now because of COVID. I kind of took some time off, but I'm going to go back soon at MCW Pro Wrestling. That's where Leo Rush went to. Also, I train at a smaller company that's kind of making the name known in the DMV area. DMV is DC, Maryland, Virginia. It's called C3W. Right now, their champion is Victor Benjamin. He's married to Lady Frost. And also Cody Hall, Scott Hall's son, is actually wrestling there. So I actually have an interview with him coming out pretty soon so people can figure out like, oh, I haven't seen Cody Hall in a year and a half. What's he up to? So talk to him. He's doing well, and it should be coming up next week, probably.
You know, so slide that in my DM so I can get the scoops on that one, Malcolm.
There you go. So I have to ask you, especially now that you're talking about wrestling, and I was going to ask you this anyway, so it's kind of a good time to bring it up. And I don't mean this as any sort of offense. This is just a question because I've seen you on camera. What is your size and weight? Like, how tall are you and how? Because you're like, I saw your interview with Calvin Tateman, and Calvin Tateman's a big dude, and like you're at least as big as Calvin Tateman, like size wise, like. That's what I noticed. I was like, dude, this is Malcolm's a big dude.
Yeah, the name is real, man. So I'm 6 foot, maybe 5'11", almost like 6 foot. But I weigh like it fluctuates. I mean, I know 1 point I was 280. I know 1 point I was 320. I'm ranging in between 270 and 330, somewhere in the middle. I'm always ranging right there. I'm a powerlifter, by the way. So the name MuscleManMalcolm's not an ego trip because some people think it is. I actually got it from John Cena when I was 14. I went to an autograph signing, and he was there, obviously, because that's why I was there. And I gave him like a workout glove that I had because he was the reason I started working out. It was a sweet little moment, blah, blah, blah. And he signs it, and he says in his deep John Cena voice, like, "Oh, MuscleManMalcolm," and then just signs it. I'm like, I like that. I'm going to use it. So it literally it came from John Cena making a stupid joke that I thought was incredible, and I want to make money off of it.
Dude, that's the best. You legitimately got your nickname from John Cena. Like, and you have a talking point forever. Like, you can always tell that. You can always tell that story. Like, that's great. So yeah. I knew you through Twitter. I had seen the name and everything, but yeah, when I saw you on camera, I was like, this so it wasn't surprising. It wasn't surprising to hear like you're what, 22?
Yeah.
So 22 years old, big dude, lifts weights, wants to train, wants to interview. So I mean, it's inevitable you'll be doing something in pro wrestling. I mean, it sounds like you're literally putting out the biggest net possible. You can wrestle, you can interview, you can edit, you can do whatever. Like, you just want to be a part of the business.
Yeah, no, I really do powerlifting. Like, I actually compete. Like, at one point I was nationally ranked. I know I kind of fell off a little bit from that exact ranking, but I'll be back up there real soon. The goal, I'll put it out here right now as well. I want to break Mark Henry's record. His deadlift record is 850. That ain't nothing.
Okay.
All right. Okay. That's my dad. I love me some Mark Henry, but I got to break it. Right now, I'm not too far away from it. I have to break it before I turn 25 and 22. I got time in the bank. I got money in the bank, and I'm pretty sure I can break it. So soon enough, Mark Henry's going to have to slide in my DM. It's like, hey, man, didn't know you were that strong. Jeez.
Well,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's funny you bring that up. So like back when I was in high school, and I've heard I tell this a lot, but this is relevant to this particular story.
Yeah.
Well, I went to high school with Cody Rhodes. We were on the same high school wrestling team, and the reason I bring this up is because I've heard Xavier Woods tell this story, because I got to see Austin Creed, Xavier Woods versus Cody Rhodes in high school before either of them were on television doing pro wrestling. They were both highly ranked amateur wrestlers in high school wrestling in Georgia, in the Atlanta area that I'm from. And I remember Xavier saying he wrestled up multiple weight classes to wrestle Cody, and his whole mindset was, I know Dusty Rhodes is going to be there, and if I can beat Cody, Dusty's going to have to call the WWE and go, hey, there's someone who can beat my son, and he wants to be a wrestler. So it's kind of like, if you can beat Mark Henry's record, he's going to have to make the call and go, yo, this is the kid who beat my record. We got to get him in here.
That's the goal. I even got your company shirt on, Mark. I mean, I have to go there. Yeah, no, that's the big goal. I mean, and also to break Mark Henry's record, I'd also be breaking Big E's record as well. So I'm just saying, like, love them both. Y'all are like family to me. Mark Henry, you don't know me yet, but I am your son. I promise. I can break both your records, and it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be fun. We'll shake hands, we'll take some pictures and stuff. That little Triple H pose is gonna be sick.
Malcolm, what's been last one here? What's been your favorite interview that you've done?
That's so hard. Honestly, I'm not gonna say names. I've only had like one bad experience ever, and it really wasn't even that bad. I've honestly loved talking to every single wrestler I've ever talked to, because like half these guys I like grew up watching, so I'm like, yo, this is like sick, but I got like stay friendly so they don't think I'm weird. But like also just watch these guys on Independence absolutely kill it. I'll drop a few names just because I like most of these people so much. Nick Aldis, obviously I've interviewed him like 5 times. That's my guy. Leo Rush, big fan. He's from my area. To see him do what he's doing now is absolutely incredible. Sepa Fatu, Solo Sakai, I'm big fan. He's honestly probably been one of my biggest interviews so far, if not the biggest right now. So it was like his last one before he went to NXT. So to see what he's doing right now, love him. Love seeing what he's doing. And then the last one, I'll go with Darius Lockhart. Love Darius Lockhart. Dude is up next. He is so good. Also up next, Lucky Ali's from North Carolina area. Super talented guy. All these guys are super incredible. Throw in one last name there as well. Mr. Grimm, Hitman for Hire, one of the best independent wrestlers on the scene right now. Highly underrated, best big man in the business right now. AEW, NWA, 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 NWA. Pick him up. The dude is solid, and he deserves the whole world.
Let everyone know one more time where they can find you at.
Definitely. So you can find me on Twitter right up here or here. Malcolm Muscle. I tweet a lot of stupid stuff. I like wrestling. You like wrestling, so we might as well be friends. I'm on Instagram, the Muscleman Mal. Sometimes I post workout stuff. You will be embarrassed because you can't lift as much as me. And that's okay. You can get up there too one day. I also post pictures of a lot of wrestlers. You'll like it there as well. Then YouTube, MuscleManMalcolm. I post all these interviews, all this wrestling content. The Royal Rumble's coming soon. I'm going to be doing some reactions to that. Hear me scream when I see Mojo Rawley return. It's going to be great.
Guys, we appreciate everybody listening. We'll be back in just a second. Malcolm, thank you again for taking the time out with us today. You can follow him at Malcolm Muscle on Twitter. Follow him on YouTube at MuscleManMalcolm. All the links will be in the bio, the description below. Malcolm, again, thank you. We'll be back in just. I want to thank Malcolm for joining us. We recorded that on Tuesday. First guest on the Creator Spotlight here on the Spotlight. That was a fun interview, Stephen.
It was great, dude. Really happy we're doing these kind of spotlights for creators on this show. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and when we say creators, as we've learned, it's not just creators as far as wrestling media. It is creators in the ring, as AC Mack will be joining us next week. So I'm looking forward to talking to different people, getting to know people. Hopefully everyone goes and checks out their work. Stephen, I appreciate you doing this. We're gonna be back next week. We're gonna be back the week after, and the week after, and the week after. And Stephen, let everyone know where they can find you at.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for everyone who's joined us today, everyone in the chat. We know this is something a little different than the distraction was, and we hope that you come along with the ride with us, because this is going to be a great show, and I'm just super, super excited. And thank you again, Jeremy, for inviting me to do this with you. You can follow me on Twitter at FightTalk _ FIGHTTALK _ You can use my code FightTalk, all as one word, no spaces, on independentwrestling.tv or IWTV.live. Same way to get to 2 different ways to get to the same spot. Just use my promo code. That helps me out a lot. Tonight on Twitch, twitch.tv/Fightful Gaming, myself and Joel Pearl are there every single Thursday. So that'll be kind of the new Thursday tradition. Will be me and Jeremy here in the afternoon, and then nighttime you can game with myself and Joel Pearl. Joel, if you're still in here, I apologize. I still do not have my capture card here with me, but I do plan to have that next week. But we can still play Mario Kart or play N64 or something. We'll have a good time playing video games tonight. But you'll probably only see Joel's screen tonight still. But that's a work in progress. I'm getting a capture card. It will be here by next Thursday, I promise you all, so I can display my gameplay footage as well. You can listen to the Fightful Select Weekender podcast. That's every Sunday as a part of the Fightful Select $5 tier subscription service. You get my show, you get Alice Pulaski's Sour Graps, you get extra content from Sean Ross Sapp and Jimmy Van, you get Rob and Maggie, you get a lot of stuff over there at Fightful Select now. And of course, like I mentioned, Sean Ross Sapp, I mean, the man when it comes to
don't boost it. We can't boost this man's ego anymore.
I'm gonna boost it because my thing is this: even if you're listening, even if you get Fightful Select just for Sean's news, which I think is worth it alone, right there, like you are in the loop on all the biggest breaking news in all of wrestling. For that same price, included with that news, you get all of these podcasts every week too. So like you get so much for your money over there. Subscribe to FightfulSelect.com, the most direct way to support us over here at Fightful. I do a show on Thursdays, a show on Tuesdays, and I do stuff with Jesse Davin, stuff with Doug Bateman, a whole bunch of stuff throughout the week. Fightful Fight Night. I keep it all updated on my Twitter, so just follow me there. I post links when I'm going live, and I'd be happy to see more of y'all and more of the stuff that I'm doing. And once again, thank you very much, Jeremy, and thank you very much to everybody who watched today.
You mentioned Rob and Maggie coexisting. That is actually now going to be on the Fightful Overbooked channel. So youtube.com/Fightful Overbooked. And I see our guy SP3 in the chat. SP3 and I have a show on the Fightful Overbooked channel every other Friday called FMC, stands for Friday Morning Coffee, or Fuck Matt Cardona, or anything you want FMC to stand for. It is a lot of non-wrestling chatter that SP3 and I do that. And then right after he finishes with me, he jumps on with Jensen for Degrassi Dudes, which is on both their Twitters and the True Heel Heat Twitch as well. So a lot of stuff going on. We're always busy here at Fightful, but you can go to youtube.com/Fightful Overbooked. Check out all the new shows we got going on over there. Jensen mentioned it, twitch.tv/Fightful Gaming. They are always playing Mario Kart on Thursdays. Joel and I will play SmackDown vs. Raw. We have Portal 2 that Joel and I started last week that we'll be playing tomorrow. I have a new series with Cassidy Haynes for Body Slam that will start next week, and I will announce more details on that when we finalize everything, but that'll be on the Twitch. So we'll be playing something. I know what it is, but I don't want to announce it just yet. But Cass and I will be doing something over there. Guys, no shortage of content anywhere. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us for these 2 hours here on the debut episode of The Spotlight. I hope that everyone has a good weekend. Check out the Royal Rumble. Check out the Twitch watch-along with the Royal Rumble. And check out the post-show here on youtube.com/Fightful with myself and Jared Bailey. Guys, we will talk to you